Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our show. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle. Today we're privileged to have with us Kathy Condon, who is a coach, speaker, trainer, and award-winning author. And today we're going to talk about face-to-face networking in a digital age. Welcome to the program, Kathy.
Well, thank you, Mike, and greetings from balmy Palm Springs, California.
Oh, nice. Awesome. I'm sitting here in Denver looking at snow and reveling in our recent Super Bowl victory.
Well, and you should be. Absolutely
right.
Wonderful about winning the game. Fabulous. And you guys all did something bright and chipper like that, so fabulous.
That's right. Hey, so let's get started learning about a little bit about yourself. Can you tell us about your background, how long you've been in business, and what got you started speaking and writing, and then more importantly, how you got focused on this topic of face-to-face networking in the digital age?
Absolutely. It turned out I was married to a vice president dean of a university, and every 4 years we moved, and I did that 5 times. And each time we moved, it was a great distance. And thus, you had to leave all kinds of friends and all your people behind you when you left. And again, keep in mind, this is before we had social media at this point. And I moved to Vancouver, Washington, and I called the junior college up there and asked what it took to teach a class. And they said, well, you know, this and this and this. And by the way, we need it tomorrow afternoon. And they said, what would you be teaching? And I said, well, let me think about it. So I hung up the phone, and I used the Tony Robbins saying, if I did know what it is I wanted to teach, what would it be? And it turned out immediately it just popped up, face-to-face networking. So I went in, and in my very first class, there were 24 people there. So I knew I had a topic that was of interest. But I also knew I was presenting very simple techniques and things that people could implement right away. And frankly, I did it with a sense of humor by telling them stories about me and how I used it. And then social media came along, and I knew I had a book inside of me about face-to-face networking, but not the time to bring out when social media is becoming the answer to everything. I also knew I had to learn social media because the younger people would never believe me in my pursuit of the simple things like how to shake hands and so on if I did not understand social media. So, frankly, I was one of the earlier users of it. And then people started realizing that social media was not the answer for everything, and I decided to write the book on face-to-face networking. It's all about communications. And to this day, it is still one of the top sellers on Amazon. And the reason being is that I left no stone unturned about simple little things that one can do to, meet people and where to go and so on. And as a result, I also realized I must be able to figure out a way how to talk about how to use social media and face-to-face networking together. And frankly, Mike, you and I are a result right now of social media. Talking with me, being interviewed by you, we found each other online. So you certainly can't dismiss social media, but the truth is reports are coming out again and again. And what I find really amazing is that many years ago when I was teaching career coaching, 85% of the jobs were gotten through face-to-face networking. And guess what the number is now? 85%. 85%. Yeah. So there is absolutely a use for social media, but the truth is you still have to get out there and meet people.
Yeah, I think that in this day and age, that's a big struggle. And I was just saying to someone I interviewed a couple weeks ago that I love technology. I love time-saving and efficiency things, and like the way that you and I connected, social media, check. The way we booked the interview with the online scheduling tool, check. But guess what many times people do? They use these time-saving tools to save some time, and rather than going, okay, good, now I can focus a little bit more on this project that I have at hand, they cram more and more and more stuff in, and they feel overwhelmed and flustered. And then on the other side of the spectrum, they literally find themselves hiding behind their technology. So they don't go out there and even in-person meetings, but even as simple as a phone call. I would suspect, and I would ask this question, if you could speak on this concept. Networking is critical. We know that. And yeah, you should go to the meetings where you're meeting people and maybe a chamber mixer, things like that. But I would say that so many people hide behind their electronic email and social media to the point that they don't even pick up the phone and talk to people in a networking format.
Without any question. And, how Facebook has former memories right now, they're coming up. And I looked at that this morning of my memories. And a year ago today, exactly, a commander at Fort Lewis picked up the phone after not having seen me after 2 years, and I had done a training up there. He called me to tell me how much he uses the information that he learned in my training.
Wow.
Now, do you think I felt fabulous the rest of the day? And when I saw it this morning, I'm talking about it again.
Yep.
Absolutely important. And we just don't, when we're not, and again, I should back up a little bit, Mike, and say that I work at having 3 face-to-face meetings a week, somehow or other. And I usually pick up the phone and call someone to sit one-on-one, because when you sit across the table, that's when you really get to know someone. And I just have a really major training coming up in June, which was referred to me by a person that I sat across and had a cup of coffee with 2 years ago. So, because he knew and understood what I was about, and he's been following me a little bit here in Palm Springs, that picking up the phone and then setting up appointments is just gigantic to me.
You said something interesting about, was it the major up north that you did that training for, right?
Right.
Well, one thing that he did, which he probably was just being kind, but if we as business people can look at that and now use this to our advantage, which is this. He noticed something that he was using that he learned from someone, yourself, and he made an overture to you to pick up the phone and call. And let's put a little asterisk there. That could have been he could have dropped you a card in the mail, he could have shot you an email, he could have texted you, he could have hit you up on social media, anything at all. But the fact that he showed gratitude made you remember that, made you feel good. And here's what I would submit to you. If he called you up one day or emailed you one day and said, hey, I've got a quick favor, could you help us do whatever, you would be pre-positioned 1,000% more than anyone else asking because of that gratitude that he showed. So how can we do that in our networking? Boy, if someone does something for us, or we appreciated that, speaker at the chamber mixer, why could we not do that so that sets the stage for a few weeks from now, calling them up, going, hey, let's grab a coffee. Well, maybe if you just said, hey, let's grab a coffee, and they didn't even remember you, maybe it's like, oh, I'll get back to you. But maybe when you give that gratitude and express the thanks, that really warms up that lead. Can you speak to that concept in using your networking and your social media that way?
Well, without any question. And very frankly, Mike, I am a firm believer in the handwritten notes yet. As a matter of fact, I just sent 8 of them out the other day. I was getting a little behind. And when I send a handwritten note, I put my contact card in it because I don't view it at all as, advertising at this point. I view it as a way of making it easy for them to get in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, about 80% of the time, I will get an email or a phone call back to thank me for that handwritten note.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does it take more time? Absolutely. Yet, think about it. I haven't even looked to see how many emails I have on my server this morning.
Yep.
When you write a note, say, it was great meeting you, Mike, and so on, you look at it and say, that's nice, and it's gone. When you write a handwritten note, they go to the mail, they get their mail, they open up, they smile. It is a fabulous way of doing it. And, it's old school, but once again, it's become new school because nobody's doing it, and it makes you far more memorable for the fact that you've taken that extra time. And if you have note cards in your house, it doesn't take long to do that at all.
Yeah, it cuts through the clutter because, like you said, anybody can delete an email or maybe not even get it because it went to the spam folder or didn't see that tweet. But that handwritten note. Now, I use a service where I can send out the cards without touching them. It's online, and I will say that is less effective than your actual handwritten note. But for the people that go, I'm not going to do any handwritten note ever, at least do something where it's going to land in the mailbox, not an email. And what I will also say is just this morning I read an article from a sales blog that I subscribe to, and they were mentioning the story of the famous Guinness Book of World Records holder. You probably know the name, Joe Girard.
Sure, absolutely.
And he is known for being the number one car salesman ever, and his big thing that he really attributed it to was writing handwritten notes. And I think the number was somewhere above 10,000 a month that he got up to, but he was just selling boatloads of cars, and I'm sure he had assistants that helped with that. But to your point, we said we're going to talk about face-to-face networking in the digital age, but now we're talking about handwritten notes, and I would say that it's a balance. It's a balance between those personal meetings, those phone calls, the handwritten notes, and then when you can sprinkle in the social media, because there are times that you need to do some things online, like the LinkedIn recommendation, and for that split second when they see, Kathy recommended me, that moment in time they thought of you, and then they move about their day, but at least that was that little tap on the shoulder.
Without any question. And I had an interesting thing happen to me. I was, posting articles on LinkedIn and stuff, and I posed the question, are you feeling like social media, you're spending too much time doing social media? And so on, and I'm wondering about the effectiveness of my post. I actually wrote that on LinkedIn. It was so interesting. I got a particular one of the women said, all I can say is what you post, I read. And I went, oh my goodness. Now, I didn't know who this woman was. I have never met her before. And I don't go crazy posting. Honestly, I spend about a half hour a day in the morning, and then if I have some time, a little bit later, I use Facebook, in my case, really just for my personal use. I moved from the Northwest here to Palm Springs, so I have a whole slew of friends in the Northwest that I am helping them learn what life is like in Palm Springs. And I have a few people on Facebook, but, we have what's called the Palm Springs Neighborhood Group, and I keep abreast of that and post on that. But I really use LinkedIn and Twitter to some extent. There was a national poll that came out that's saying that those who on Twitter who are like in the rental car business, the restaurants, or hotels, something like that, it's highly effective for them because, people do a hashtag and so on. Mm-hmm. But for my service of coaching and so on, I certainly use it, but I'm not saying the results from it to spend a whole lot more time on it. Let's put it that way. So LinkedIn is my go-to social media digital place.
Yeah, and you've got to know your audience, and you've got to know what you're providing to them, and that gets back to, the age-old marketing 101, mapping out your target audience persona, avatar, who am I talking to, how will they best receive this? If you were trying to sell skateboards, you probably would not put an ad in Reader's Digest, and if you were trying to sell a walker, you probably would not have a hashtag Twitter campaign. So you just have to know who your target audience is and how they consume their information. And yeah, to your point, I've seen these graphics of all the social media platforms out there, and it would stagger you if you saw them all on this graphic. And we know the main ones, the Twitters and the LinkedIns and all that, but there's ones that you just literally have never heard of. So are you supposed to jump on that bandwagon every other second when they come out? No, you've got to pick the one or two that you will do consistently, and that's where you live. And I think that that's the big mistake that people get, is they try one for a short amount of time and go, well, that didn't work. Well, sorry, but you have to do something all in for a long period of time. You send that one handwritten note and you didn't get this raving response and waves of new business from it. That's not the point. You're sending that out to make that impact with someone, to be noticed, and you're doing it because it's the right thing, not for this immediate return.
Absolutely. And let me share with you, too, what I think is another really good use of social media, Mike. My daughter lives in Belgium, was going to the island of Kiowa near Charleston, South Carolina. And my second edition of my first book had come out, and it's called It Doesn't Hurt to Ask, which is my dad's favorite saying. And it just come out, and I thought, hey, why don't I do a book signing in Charleston? So what I did is I put in Event Planner, Charleston, South Carolina, in the top 3 of them. I picked up the phone and I called one, and this is what I learned from her. She said, Kathy, you wouldn't want to have a book signing in April in Charleston, South Carolina. Everything stops because it is the wedding month. Everybody just are attending weddings and so on. Mike, that saved me a heck of a lot of time and energy. Didn't even have to drag my books there. It was a fabulous use of social media.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Is we could probably talk for hours on end about using social media for research, like what you just mentioned, but also, remember in the old sales training manuals, it would be when you get shuttled into the CEO's office to have your meeting, and he's, finishing up on an email, and you're looking around to his bookshelf, and you see, a sailboat and a golf club, or a picture of him with so-and-so. That gives you something to talk about. Well, aren't we able to do that well ahead of the meeting using social media? And so I think that research aspect really just opens up ways to enhance our networking when we do meet with people in person or on the phone.
Well, and I'm loving house sitting in the summertime to get me out of the heat. And it was interesting, the woman who we emailed back and forth, when she called me, she said, just so you know, I went online to find out if you were a real person or not. And I went, okay, there is another use, of it. So, yeah, it's a tremendous tool, but the catch is don't spend not 24 hours a day, let's say, 12 hours a day behind the computer. And I'm just even watching myself. When it was really hot, I'm a writer, so I thought, okay, no problem, I can stay in and write. But the truth is, every time I set up a coffee date, go meet with someone, that's where brand new ideas flowed. It is that being across the table from someone that makes a difference. So again, I can't stress enough, I use social media all the time, but yet 3 appointments out. And notice I said face-to-face. I am not to the point of going to chamber meetings and so on just because they're labeled networking events. My belief is I have 2 questions I ask myself before I go to any event. will I learn something or will I have fun? And if I cannot answer yes to either one of those, I don't go.
Yeah.
Because there's too many, every single place you go in this world is a networking event. I went to a lecture at the university last night, and I met 2 new people there. It's every time you step out of the door, you are doing face-to-face networking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And what you said previously about being just spending so much time on social media, it reminded me, and I pulled this email up that I got this morning. I'm on the e-zine list for Jeffrey Gitomer, and in today's email was an article by Paul Morgan, and he says, put down your phone and stop checking email all day. The biggest time suck in the history of man is our constant need to check social media and email at every red light, at lunch with a customer, on a phone call with your kid or client, and then they put this stat in there that that Americans are spending, I think it's somewhere in the range of over 5 hours a day on social media. I mean, it's just getting to the point where, I mean, think about this. Look around us when we are at a stoplight or anywhere. Everyone's got that, what they call tech neck, your neck bent down over your phone. And I think if you look up once in a while, you might see those opportunities like you mentioned. And last night, you picked up a couple new contacts that you might be able to follow up with and have a coffee appointment. So that leads me to a thought or a question, like the chicken or the egg, which comes first? So social media leading to a meeting, or a meeting leading to an opportunity to connect on social media?
Yeah, it depends. Mm-hmm. It could go either way, on that. The biggest thing, Mike, in either case, it's called follow-up that people are not doing. And I'm honestly, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I finally decided I was getting so frustrated with it. Number one, I still believe in handing out contact cards instead of sitting there waiting while everybody punches in all your contact information when you're face-to-face. I actually started taking blank cards along with me because what was happening to me, I would be out and about and meet these really fascinating people. And, of course, they didn't have a contact card. I handed them my contact card, and they said, oh, I'll absolutely get in touch. And the bottom line, they weren't. And it wasn't because I was a bad person. I know that. It's just that I bet if we did a survey and found out the amount of follow-through that anybody does, even on social media or meeting face-to-face, I bet the number would be staggering how much it is not done.
I agree, and I think that people think that they follow up, but what's the statistic that we hear so often is, it takes 7 to 10 to 12 times of someone hearing about you or your service for them to finally understand what really you offer. And that's been floating around for decades. And I would submit to you that really with our distracted society that we're really in, it takes 1 or 2 or 3 attempts to really count as one. So, you're getting hit up with tweets and text messages and this and that. So that one email you send doesn't really count as the one, contact to get to the point where they understand what you do. So I think that it really is this consistency of follow-up aspect. I would just like to wrap up and just say, are there any takeaway thoughts that you would recommend for someone to get started in using social media to stimulate face-to-face meetings, and then let listeners know how they can learn more about your company and reach you?
Okay, so I really believe on LinkedIn the way to do it, and I think they are accurate in saying 80% of what you send should be just sharing great articles or quotes or things that you've heard, and the other 20% being about, your own work. Because you can, all of a sudden, if somebody just keeps talking about himself, a political campaign is a perfect example, talking about themselves all the time, but what we want to hear is, who is the real person. So I occasionally throw in, a line or a paragraph out of my book or something, going on there. But I do think sharing your knowledge and make it interesting stuff. Don't make it stuff like, well, yeah, I knew that a long time ago. And of course, you can't make any assumptions what anybody knows. But the bottom line is share more. And then, like this woman who wrote back, I'm really appreciating what you sent. So obviously what that did, Mike, got me in touch with her again to say, gee, thank you. And next thing you know, we have a phone call, coming up to talk. So that keeps going. And so, and how people can find out about me is, Kathy with a K, Condon.net on the website, and my book, Face-to-Face Network, it's all about communications, and the second edition is It Doesn't Hurt to Ask, it's all about communications, can be found on Amazon. And I happen to love what I do, and I'm also training and speaking throughout the nation on the subject, because as you can see, we barely touch surface here.
Yep. Exactly. Well, we picked up some good nuggets, and I think that the best way to learn is sometimes in small doses so that we can actually implement some things and get that momentum going before we come back for more. So you really gave us some good nuggets, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.